Hello there. Welcome back to the booth here at the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, now joined by Luis Scott Vargas. Luis, welcome back to the booth. We've got our second semifinal match. This is what it all comes down to. We know we have one finalist already set. We need to fill up the other 3 seats on the other side of that table. We've got Belgium versus Italy right now. Hello and welcome to coverage of the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas, and we're ready for our second semifinal match. We've got Belgium versus our defending World Magic Cup champions, Italy. Let's meet the teams.
Pascal Vieren,
Branko Nering,
Peter Vieren,
Jérôme Bastogne,
Go
Belgium! Andrea Mengucci, Alessandro Casamenti,
Mattia Rizzi,
Alessandro Portaro,
Team Italy!
Great stuff. I love those things, Luis, because you really get a chance to feel out what these guys are like.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
awesome.
Yeah, the Italians do not let us down when it comes to those sound bits. Now, where we're going to start off our coverage here for our second semifinal is on our table A, and that's Jérôme Bastogne. He's playing Goryo's Vengeance. We saw him do some pretty disgusting things a little earlier here today. His opponent, Mattia Rizzi, is playing Infect.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to watch the Goryo's Vengeance deck after seeing a turn 2 Gristlebrand kill after getting Thought Seized when playing against Panama in the last round.
A couple of lands on the battlefield early between these two teams. I mentioned it before, but of real note here, Italy, they are our defending champions. I mean, this team somehow, with 3 of the 4 players new, has made it all the way back to the semifinals and is just 2 matches, 2 rounds away from back-to-back World Magic Cup champions. That would be unprecedented. Also, a very tall order. Team Belgium is stacked, and if you ask Italy, they don't like the matchups here either.
And what that means to me is that they're good at reading deck lists and figuring out what matchups are, because I don't like these matchups either. I mean, Infect against Ad Nauseam is one of the more lopsided matchups in the format. Just Infect is just faster than Ad Nauseam and gets around a lot of the preventative measures that Ad Nauseam has, like Phyrexian Unlife for Angel's Grace. And then you have Lantern against Nightburn, also one of the worst matchups in the format. So the match we're watching is the closest one, because this Goryo's Vengeance deck can certainly fizzle or not end up assembling a combo in time. But I still think it's going to be very tough for Italy to take this match. Certainly possible, but it is going to be hard.
Okay, well, Faithless Looting for Jérôme is going to help at least attempt to set up his combo pieces, though it doesn't look like that's what he's doing here. He's currently discarding a bunch of lands.
And of note, Jérôme does have a Gristlebrand in hand, but because he also has Through the Breach and Simian Spirit Guide, he's going to go with that plan instead. He's hoping to hit 5 mana soon. He discarded a land instead of discarding Night's Whisper, presumably with the plan of Night's Whispering into additional lands.
I see. On the other side of the table, Rizzi, he needs to find a threat. Let's see if he's got one.
Yeah, he's got a Blighted Agent in hand. He didn't have Glistener Elf. Glistener Elf is much better than Blighted Agent in this matchup because it's just a 1-mana Blighted Agent. There's no creatures on the other side of the battlefield.
Right.
So opening on Blighted Agent, not quite as good, but with a hand of Might of Old Crowside, Mutagenic Growth, and Vines of Vastwood, that Blighted Agent is going to kill fairly quickly.
You can see team captain Andrea Mengucci kind of rolling over there behind Rizzi. He's keeping an eye on his teammates and making sure they don't need any help.
Yeah,
any
and
tough spots.
This is a turn 3 kill. So for the Infect deck,
for Rizzi, okay.
Rizzi has Vines of Vastwood to make it a Blighted Agent, a 5/5 with kicker. Might of Old Crowside to make it a 9/9, Mutagenic Growth to make it an 11. So Jérôme is going to tap out for Night's Whisper, and then Rizzi's actually going to steal this game on the draw.
Now, Rizzi does have the land needed for that as well, right?
He does. He's got it all.
Oh, wow. And you can see Jérôme Bastogne completely tapped out here. The shields, they are down, and we're going to see a very quick one go to Team Italy. And this is not good news for Jérôme. He's like, oh, no. Don't do it. No, not that too.
Not like this.
Not like this. And that too. But wait, there's more. Mattia Ricci with the big finish here. Vines of Vastwood. And if you're sitting in Jerome's seat, you're like, yeah, it feels bad, man. That is one game to the good for Team Italy. Mattia Ricci wasting no time with the turn 3 kill. And Bastogne simply has to look over at his Belgian teammates and say, yeah, well, we didn't win the first game.
No, and in fact, just has draws that can do that.
All right, we'll be back right after these messages.
Looking for a place to try out new decks and strategies? Head to your local game store and check out Friday Night Magic. Get more info at wizards.com/FNM. Got an over-the-top standard deck that's ready to bust the format wide open? Sleeve up and throw down at Standard Showdown tournaments for a chance to win sweet prizes. 4 weeks only every Saturday from November 26th through December 17th. Lock in your game at magic.wizards.com/Standard Showdown.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Rotterdam for the World Magic Cup. Luis and I, you were just chatting with me during our little break there, and you're
To
like,
be fair, that was only because I'm paid to do so.
Thank you for pointing that out. You don't have time to make jokes like that. This whole round could be over before we blink. You said this could go very, very quickly from what you're seeing.
Not only does Belgium have 3 incredibly fast decks to begin with, 2 of Italy's decks are very fast too. Ad nauseum, capable of winning turn 4 or 5, and then, in fact, of course, as we just saw, capable of winning turn 3. Lantern's not capable of winning on turn 5. It is definitely capable of losing on turn 5, and Naya Byrne is a tough matchup for Lantern.
Right. So as we join the table here, we've got Branko Knighting. He's playing against Alessandro Pataro, and he's got a lot of attackers out already.
-2 again 2, you lose 2.
Okay, well, Alessandro doing his best to try to stabilize here. I see, whenever I watch a Lantern deck go, I immediately scan for the bridge.
Yes.
That's the card that I look for first, and I don't see one here.
Doesn't have one in play. Has one in hand, but would have too many cards in hand, so Alessandro is emptying his hand as quickly as possible. Collective Brutality is one of the best cards against Burn. All 3 modes are good.
He's going to pass the turn back. Branko is going to fire off Boros Charm on end step to drop Alessandro down to 7. Can he get the job done here? No, not with a pair of lands in his hand. Of note here as well, Luis, that Pithy Needle you see at the top of the screen is actually naming Scalding Tarn, which Branko has one of in hand. And Alessandro aggressively using Surgical Extraction to take out those Arid Maces. That's why you see those exiled.
I like the idea behind the plan, but with 3 lands in play, Burn is capable of operating and casting all its spells.
Right.
On the other hand, Inventor's Fair lurking among Alessandro's lands is going to give him a really good chance this game. I actually think...
Has he turned this around?
I think the Lantern's actually in great shape here.
Especially with another land off the top? For Branko, he's literally sitting on 3 lands here with 3 already, and like you said, his deck doesn't even play things that cost more than 2.
Yeah, gaining a life per turn with Branko having no burn spells currently on deck and just a Boros Charm on top means that Alessandro is going to, he's going to outrace the burn spells, especially with Spellskite potentially redirecting like Lightning Bolt, and it's gonna be hard for Branko to get things going.
More land death aggression here from Alessandro, taking Bronco off of white mana entirely, using his Ghost Quarter, knowing that Bronco's not going to be able to go find a basic anyway. Ooh, there's a Boros Charm on the top of the library, and remember, he drew in for the turn as well, putting it a little bit closer, but again, no white mana available. Does he have access to white mana at all?
He's got a Sacred Foundry in hand that he's been sitting on.
Okay, so he has that.
And so if he's not worried about another Ghost Quarter, he could play Sacred Foundry, pass, Boros Charm, end of turn, untap Boros Charm. That takes Alessandro to 2 because the turn has passed, and there's an Inventor's Fair. You pass back, Alessandro goes to 3, and if you draw a 3 damage burn spell, you might be able to win the game.
Yeah, right now, I see a Mox Opal there for Alessandro Potaro, so he could activate his Spellskite if that third burn spell was a Lightning Bolt or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's funny that Spellskite, people often thought of it as like anti-burn technology, and realistically it's fine. It's a 0/4 that blocks some of the attackers, but burn doesn't actually play very many cards you can redirect anymore. You've got Rift Bolt and Lightning Bolt as really the only cards that are relevant to redirect.
It looks like Potaro is just going to play a Pyroclasm just to make sure it's not in his hand. Doesn't really see any reason to keep it. Of note here, Luis, I do see a Codex Shredder on top of Potaro's deck, which is kind of the one piece that he's missing. He's got the Lantern, he's got the Bridge. He does need to find a few of these mill artifacts to make this work. So that was stage 1. Wow, it is a Lightning Bolt on top of the library, too. Just like we drew it up, Luis, though, that Spellskite looking to do really good work here by redirecting the bolt. Bronco would have much rather seen one of his burn spells that only goes to the face. Had it been, he may have actually taken this one back.
Yeah, Bronco, he had an opportunity, and this is how a lot of games with Lantern go, where your opponent is just so close to beating you. They have a turn or two where if they draw an action spell, or in this case now 2 action spells in a row, they could get into it. Then all of a sudden they need 3 action spells in a row. Then all of a sudden it just doesn't happen.
Right, and interestingly, the Lightning Bolt not an action spell here,
No.
as Portaro says, I've got my Spellskite, I've got my Mox Opal. That's not going to get the job done for you.
I can one.
So he's not going to use his Codex Shredder on Bronco for that one. In fact, he's just not going to use it at all. He is going to get that Lightning Bolt out of his hand anyway. Bronco's going to, of course, respond to this Inquisition of Kozilek with Boros Charm. And then he's also going to respond with the Lightning Bolt, but that's effectively just putting it in the graveyard here as the Spellskite used its ability.
So Bronco, basically every turn that passes, Alessandro gets slightly further away from dying, and it becomes to a point where Bronco can't draw enough burn spells in a row, especially in the face of that Codex Shredder.
Right, the Shredder was the last piece of the puzzle for the Lantern control deck. Another Lightning Bolt on top, though.
Yeah, that one not too threatening.
Right, same reason as before.
It does give Alessandro the decision. If he casts Ancient Stirrings, he has to use Mox Opal. He no longer has blue mana for Spellskite, and then he could pay 2 life to redirect Lightning Bolt, but that's obviously much less appealing than just paying a blue mana.
Yeah, and right now, Bronco's creatures still can't attack through the bridge, even with 1 card in hand for Potaro, right? So he's not that worried.
Yeah, you could save Ancient Stirrings. You know you're drawing a Lantern next turn, so you know you'll be able to play that. And basically, you need to wait till you hit a green source so you can cast Ancient Stirrings with Mox Opal up, or wait until there's something else you want to cast and just play Stirrings in that in the same turn.
Okay, so Portaro's going to say, no, I don't want you to have that Lightning Bolt, but wow, there's another one for Bronco. Why do you think he didn't want him to have the bolt there, Luis? I'm curious.
He might be worried about stacking up too many bolts and overloading the Spellskite. He also wanted to cast Ancient Stirrings, so he wanted to mill the Lightning Bolt so that he wouldn't have to pay 2 life to Spellskite.
Gotcha. Well, that didn't work out. Okay, he found a Ghoul Color spell, though. Another copy of Ensnaring Bridge. Ooh, different artwork.
I like it.
No, you don't like that.
No, I love it.
He doesn't need that second copy of Bridge, though. He's going to put that one in his graveyard. This is game 1 between these players, so
Another Lightning
Potaro's
Bolt.
not expecting to see. Jeez. It's all Boros Charms and Lightning Bolts over there. Look at that graveyard.
Here's where Ghoul Color's Bell gets also really good. When you can use it to mess with both players' libraries at the same time, improving your draws and making your opponent's draws worse. It's a powerful interaction. This Lantern deck really is a motley crew of cards that individually are very much not powerful cards, but in concert they do a lot of work.
Monastery Swift Spear. It's the remaining card on top of the library. Just as a snapshot here, Luis, Portaro's in really good shape, right?
Yes, Portaro is a massive favorite this game.
Huge favorite.
Like we're approaching the territory where Bronco is going to have a, not a 0% chance to win, but very like low single digit % chances, because with Codex Shredder and Ghoul Caller's Bell out and Spellskite out, Portaro just has so many options to prevent Bronco from drawing, relevant cards. And that Inventor's Fair means that if you're able to prevent Bronco from drawing cards for 4 turns, then all of a sudden it just becomes impossible because your life total requires him to draw 9 burn spells in a row or something absurd.
Right. One of the things I like about how Alessandro has been playing this for the tournament is he's been pretty aggressive with his mill artifacts. Once he turns the corner on the game and feels like he's got it locked up for the most part, he will pretty continually start to mill you out and get the job done quickly. He doesn't want to wait around.
And there's aspect of this being a team tournament that matters for that. If Alessandro wants to help his other teammates or wants them to not have to help him so they can look at another match. So there's an actual strategic advantage to trying to kill it more quickly.
You know what's interesting, too, is Alessandro, once again, showing the aggressive lantern approach here. He actually used that Pyrite spell bomb to go upstairs. He hit Bronco and gave him a little taste of his own medicine there to knock him to 8, and he's just going to do this over the course of the next 4 turns and win way, way sooner than milling would.
Yeah, Academy Runes lets him get back the spell bomb every turn and then just end Bronco's game.
That's going to do it. Alessandro Portaro picks up game number 1 for Team Italy. So if we look at the game ones, even though we feel like Team Belgium is heavily favored in the matchups, it was actually Italy 2-1. It was Rizzi and Portaro winning their first games, where Peter Vieren was the only one from Team Belgium who was able to pick up his first game. So let's take a look, by the way, speaking of the team captain from Belgium, Peter Vieren, on Infect versus Alessandro Casamenti playing Ad Nauseam. You said this was just a horrible matchup for the Ad Nauseam player. You outlined a little bit of it. The first thing you said was the speed.
Ad Nauseam is actually a relatively consistent deck as far as combo decks go, because it has a lot of redundant pieces and a lot of card draw and filtering, but it's gated to turn 4 because of Lotus Bloom. Like some Miracle, Pentad Prism, Simian Spirit Guide type draws can let you go off turn 3, but really turn 4 or turn 5 is when this deck tends to go off, and that's just a higher critical turn than Infect has.
And then you also said that the particular ways in which it tries to make the game go longer don't match up particularly well against Infect.
No, Phyrexian Unlife does not buy additional turns against Infect because Infect just gets you to 10 Infect and you lose. Phyrexian Unlife does not prevent that. So you end up, or you like Angel's Grace, for example, whereas against a normal deck you would fall to 1 from their attack, you Angel's Grace to make sure you go to 1 instead of negatives. Against Infect, you would just you wouldn't lose that turn, but as soon as the turn ends, you just die to the 10 Infect counter.
State-based death. Okay, well, Casamenti is going to be on the play for this game, so you do see the Lotus Bloom suspended right away, giving him the best chance. He's also kind of a master with his deck, right?
That's what, by all accounts, is true. Everyone says that his teammates, people watching, say that he's just played this deck. Well, as BDM put it on the news desk ad nauseum, and I was just absolving myself of responsibility. I wanted to say it, but I didn't want to pay the penalty. And you end up with someone who knows their deck very well, which is one of the kind of features of Modern.
Yeah, I think the Italian team actually warped the way that they played Team Unified Modern to make sure that Casamenti could get his hands on this deck that he loves.
Casamenti has a pretty sweet one in hand, by the way. Darkness, not a card that you see played all that often. It is a way to prevent Infect from winning on a critical turn here.
Darkness, huh?
Yep, prevents all combat damage to be dealt this turn. And one of the awesome parts...
Black Fog.
One of the awesome parts about that is... Infect has all these ways to give their creatures hexproof. That's how they force through this last turn. They you can't have any removal spells, but you just cast Darkness, and they're like, all right, I guess my Glistener Elf, can't find the way. It's just stumbling around there at night.
It really is just the black fog.
Yeah, that is what it is.
Except for that instead of little tiny droplets of water, it's the lack of sunlight. Nice top-down design there.
You know you've got a sweet sideboard card when, someone mentions it and the response isn't like, what is that matchup? What matchups is that for? It's, is that legal in this format?
Or even further to that, what does that do?
Yeah.
Well, the good news for Casamenti is that thus far, he has yet to take even a single damage, or poison counter, I should say. The bad news for him is that he still needs one more turn for this Lotus Bloom. He's got the Ad Nauseam in his hand. Does he have the rest of his combo?
So we might have an exciting turn here. He's missing Angel's Grace.
Okay.
But he's got Spoils of the Vault.
Ooh,
so
let's take a look at that one.
This card is not for the faint-hearted. It is 1 black. You name a card, and you reveal cards until you find the named card. So you could just die because you lose 1 life for each card in the middle. So if Angel's Grace is 22 cards away, Casamenti is dead. The last time I saw him cast this on camera, it was actually Mengucci playing with Casamenti.
Look at him smile. He loves this.
Oh, yeah. They cast it at 7 life.
Oh, man. Wasn't it only like
And they took a cool 2 damage.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna get to see a little wheel spinning here. Now, the interesting thing, though, is this is a lot of infect damage from Vieren. Can he just get the job done right now?
Well, he's got 7 poison this turn. And Casamenti has that darkness, but he doesn't need to cast it if it's not lethal because he's just going to win on his next turn. Well, or he's going to die to his own Spoils the Vault. We might see another cool interaction here. Peter Vieren goes for a Spell Pierce on Ad Nauseam, and Casamenti uses Simian Spirit Guides to pay for it.
Oh, he does have a pair of them in hand, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. So...
yeah, so it looks like Peter Vieren is content to set up a 2-turn kill, I should say, and is going to pass the turn. So here we go. Spoils of the Vault. So what's going to happen here, Luis? Revealing.
We're going to hope Angel's Grace is within the top 20 cards of Casamenti's library. If he does, I believe he wins this game.
Thanks to the pair of Simian Spirit Guides to pay for Spell Pierce.
We're at 12.
13, 14, 15. There it is. Number 16 was the lucky number there from Alessandro Casamenti. Plenty of life to work with here, and he finds the Angel's Grace. It was starting to get a little nervous there, but he got there.
Spoils of Vault is just one of my favorite cards for coverage. That and Dark Confidant are just the all-time MVPs.
Right. And, man, Peter Vieren has to be sitting there thinking, yeah, but I got you.
But I got the Spell Pierce.
I got the Spell Pierce. This is not going to work the way you want it to.
The best part is it's going to be double Simian Spirit Guide. The Belgians are not going to believe this.
Here we go. Ad Nauseam. And Peter Vieren says, I got you. Spell Pierce that. 2 Simian Spirit Guides from Alessandro Casamenti. Says, I get to pick up my whole deck. And as a courtesy, he's just going to hand it to Peter Vieren because Peter is going to want to know what's going on, I guess. And they all get revealed to Ad Nauseam anyway.
So Casamenti has 4 Simian Spirit Guides in his deck. He hasn't played a land yet, though, this turn. So he's going to be able to play a land and use the 2 Simian Spirit Guides to Lightning Storm to finish off this game. One of the other cool things about Spoils of the Vault, if you mill too many lands, sometimes you end up in a spot where you can't kill with Lightning Storm.
Oh, of course.
Not a risk here with Peter Vieren. Oh, yeah, he looks pleased with himself.
You love that smile.
Peter Vieren at 14 and having, I believe, no lands in hand. But
Alessandro with that little smirk. I love it. This is what he came here to do. This is what his team built their decks around to make that happen. By the way, that's Pascal Vieren. That's Peter's brother there assisting him.
So can you really be called an Ad Nauseam master if you don't ever double Simian Spirit Guide a Spell Pierce? I don't know if you can. I think that's just part of the qualifications.
That is part of the entry fee. But Alessandro has it. And Peter Vieren, knowing how the deck works, saw enough to know that he is not going to win that one. So that was Casamenti evening things up with Peter Vieren. And we've got 3 wins on the side of the Italian team with just 1 for the Belgians so far. All
of a sudden, regardless of what you thought the matchups were going in or what the percentages were, with Italy in Game 3 of this match and up a game in 2 other matches, they've got to be the favorite from this position.
Right. All right, we're going to go to our front table, Table A. Jerome Bastogne versus Mattia Rizzi. And it looks like the players are ready to go. Now, last we checked, Rizzi was piling on a ton of infect and getting the job done. But now, Jerome, here he is, on the play with Goryo's Vengeance. Goryo's Vengeance, kind of an interesting deck. It uses two different cards to do kind of broken things. One of them involving the graveyard, the other not.
Through the Breach and Goryo's Vengeance are both methods of getting Gristlebrand into play. And one of the really cool things is cards that hate out Goryo's Vengeance, like say Grafdigger's Cage, Leyland of the Void, don't really impact Through the Breach. So you have some resilience there, despite being a very focused combo deck. So Jerome looks like he mulliganed, and his hand is lacking in some pieces. And one of the ways you can tell that this Goryo's Vengeance deck doesn't have a great hand is if they have a Faithless Looting and they don't cast it on turn one, which is what happened last turn. Since that means they don't often have excess cards to discard, they need all their cards because they need to get to 5 mana for Through the Breach, so they can't discard extra lands. They can't discard, too freely the World Spy Worms or Nourishing Shoals of the deck because you need those to go off as well. So Faithless Looting, very important card for the deck, but it's a lot more difficult to use than something like Dredge. Dredge could always cast Faithless Looting and it always wants to. The Goryo's Vengeance deck sometimes has to wait just to get more cards in hand so it has better selection.
Okay, here's the Faithless Looting now for Jerome. Mattia Rizzi with that Inkmoth Nexus on turn one, looking rather threatening.
And it looks like Rizzi's got an interesting sideboard card. He sided in Ravenous Trap, which is a way to stop Goryo's Vengeance some of the time, but if they don't put 3 cards in the graveyard first, then it actually won't do the trick.
And he can't even cast it otherwise. Huh. Well, we'll see how that goes.
Well, I could see a situation where you can't, let's say Jerome goes turn 1, Faithless Looting, discard, anytime you Faithless Looting and discard Gristlebrand, you're going to have the opportunity because 3 cards hit the graveyard.
Okay.
But let's say a Gristlebrand ended up in the graveyard and you had Ravenous Trap and you couldn't stop Goryo's Vengeance. You might be able to stop the second Goryo's Vengeance, which they often use mid-combo to get Borborygmos into play, at which point maybe that they're unable to kill you because they've drawn through their whole deck. And then you could maybe kill them on your next turn because they paid so much life to Gristlebrand. Though, in fact, not as good taking advantage of a low life total than other decks. You can tell that Rizzi's draw is not great, by the way, because of what he did on turn 2, which is attack for 1 with Inkmoth Nexus.
Not exactly explosive, but it is 1 poison. Jerome with plenty of time to get set up this time.
Funnily enough, a flashback Faithless Looting does not enable Ravenous Trap this turn. because
it came out of the
so
graveyard.
Now we actually did have a Faithless Looting that didn't open the door for a trap, so Borborygmos Enraged is in the graveyard successfully.
Interesting.
And then if it gets just targeted with Goryo's Vengeance next turn, Rizzi can't cast Ravenous Trap because 3 cards haven't hit the graveyard. It's pretty rare that you draw your sideboard hate card against the situation you want it, and it just still doesn't actually work. Oh, speaking of combos.
What do you see in here?
I see a Through the Breach, a very shiny Gristlebrand, and 5 mana total. 3 lands, plus a Simian Spirit Guide, plus a Desperate Ritual. So what Jerome is going to try and do here is Through the Breach out that Gristlebrand, pay 7 life, attack, pay 7 more life. He's drawn 21 at this point. He tries to find another Nourishing Shoal and a World Spine Worm. You can alternate cast the Nourishing Shoal, pitching the World Spine Worm, which lets him use Gristlebrand again to draw more cards.
He gets 15 out of that? Or 11
he gets 11 out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ends up, if he finds another iteration of those, he draws enough cards that he finds enough Simian Spirit Guides. He hasn't played a land yet, presumably this turn, on his next turn. And then either Faithless Looting, or since he already has Borborygmos in the graveyard, Goryo's Vengeance it back, and then throw all the lands you've accumulated at your opponent. And we saw him win turn 2 against Panama in the quarterfinals.
It is not a simple combo, is it? That's a lot of different cards you just named.
It is not only convoluted, it's got a lot of moving pieces. the Gordy's Vengeance deck can go off and still lose. If it's sometimes like all the Nourishing Shoals are, in your bottom, 10 cards, or you end up not finding a Borborygmos, and it's interesting that you can draw 28 cards and still not have all the pieces. Maybe you don't find enough Simian Spirit Guides. But when it does work, it's a thing of beauty.
Looking at the hand here for Ritzy, he's got that Ravenous Trap we've been talking about. He does have one Might of Volcrosa and a Mutagenic Growth. He's got an Apostle's Blessing. That's it, though. Just a few lands after that. Doesn't have quite enough to get in for lethal here, right? That's 4, 5, 6. He can Pendelhaven for 7, 8.
Well, you can activate Mutagenic Growth to 3 and Might of Volcrosa to 7. Yeah,
Yes.
and he needs another Mutagenic Growth, which is currently what he's missing.
Right, so he's only going to be able to chip in for just one poison counter this turn, pass the turn back to Jerome Bastonia, and this is a big one for him because he has tools in hand. Desperate Ritual, Simian Spirit Guide, and Through the Breach with the Grizzlebrand.
So I like how Ritzy played that last turn. He left up a Breeding Pool representing Spell Pierce. He's got two in his sideboard. And against a Spell Pierce, Jerome's line of play, if he goes for it, is throw all my cards in the graveyard.
Right.
He goes Desperate Ritual, Simian Spirit Guide, Through the Breach, get Spell Pierced. And it turns out Jerome drew a card which gave him a lot of incentive to wait.
What did he draw?
He drew a Sudden Shock. And that is a card which buys you a turn no matter what against Infect because they can't respond to Split Second. So if Ritzy attacks and goes for it with if he goes for it with Might of Volcrosa first, gets Sudden Shock, that's so good for Jerome, and it might buy the extra time Jerome needs to draw the mana sources to play around the Spell Pierce he's fearing.
Man, this is going to be tough for Mattia because he probably feels like he got away with something there, at least thinking this could go poorly, but Jerome just does nothing for the turn. But now Ritzy, if he goes for a big turn with his Inkmoth Nexus, he's going to feel it thanks to that Sudden Shock.
Well, Italy is aware that the Gordy's Vengeance deck, has 3 Sudden Shocks on the sideboard. So I don't think that they're necessarily going to tap out into it. But one of the ways to play around it somewhat is, say, play second Inkmoth Nexus, animate Nexus, use Pendelhaven.
Sure.
If they Sudden Shock, you're down a Nexus, but you still have your pump spells in hand.
Right.
Whereas against it,
and if they don't,
or if they go for Might of Volcrosa first, then they end up paying a much higher cost here.
right. Ritzy's going to just attack. Bastion says, okay, yeah, I'll take 1 poison.
So
I'm going to use my Sudden Shock here.
Yeah, so the plan does not appear to be using Might of Volcrosa. And now
it's
Bastion
interesting.
has to make the decision. If he lets the Pendelhaven ability resolve, Sudden Shock no longer good. And that would put him up to 4 poison. So it would be difficult for him to die this turn, but Mutagenic Growth plus another pump spell could do the trick.
Also, just using Sudden Shock means he doesn't take any poison here, and he kills one of the Nexuses. So, seems pretty good. I mean, he didn't get any of the pump spells out of Mattia Ritzy's hand, who played that carefully. But again, if you're sitting in Jerome Bastion's seat, you look over and there's that stupid breeding pool just looming over there.
Yeah, well, now you're really up against it because you have to figure if Ritzy has one of his 2 Spell Pierces in hand, I essentially lose right now. I have discarded my whole hand. And Jerome, funnily enough, drew another Simian Spirit Guide, so he's 1 mana short of having enough mana to pay for Pierce. So he's passing. He's hoping he's just not going to die this turn. If you're Ritzy, you've got no disruption. You've got to be very tempted to try and go for it. Jerome's at 2 poison. You can animate Might of Volcrosa up to 5, Mutagenic Growth up to 7. So you could use you can animate Pendelhaven, Might of Volcrosa, Mutagenic Growth. That would be enough if Jerome doesn't have anything, and I think
Is Ritzy going to go for it?
I think he's going to go for it.
Based on his mannerisms, I think he's going for it too.
Well, he's in going for the kill speed first of all.
Right.
Second of all, when you have 0 disruption and your opponent already used 1 Sudden Shock, it's so much more likely Jerome is just like 1 land or 1 piece away from going off, and you can't do anything about it. I like just going for it here, but I'm probably biased because I actually know that it's going to work.
You know the hand.
But I think logically it makes sense from Italy's perspective to go for it. So even if it's hard for me to say what I would or wouldn't do.
Well, interestingly, so he has attacked here though.
That means he's not.
No might.
That means he might not be using that. And without that, he he can Vines of Vastwood, but yeah, it's not. He is not going to be lethal. So it looks like Ritzy's going to wait an additional turn.
Whoa, that could really cost him. Jerome Bastogne gets away with one here.
If Jerome draws a land here,
He
a mana
will
source,
go
he's
for it.
going to go for it.
Yeah.
He's not going to fear Spell Pierce anymore. Though, if he doesn't draw a land, now it seems really hard to not go for it, even if you don't, because now that you're at 4 poison, the odds that Ritzy has a way to finish you off next turn are so high.
Yeah, it's really funny because from Ritzy's perspective, which is kind of why I thought he might go for it, he may just look over and say, Jerome may look at this board and just feel like he must go for it, whatever he has. Now, of course, Ritzy doesn't know exactly what's in Bastogne's hand. He knows he's missed a few land drops in a row.
Also worth noting, Ritzy has
it.
Dispel, but I don't think Jerome can ever beat a Dispel, so I don't think he's going to play around it. Well, Jerome still could go for it here. He still has double Simian Spirit Guide.
Yes.
And
To get the ritual going.
and
then,
into Desperate Ritual, into Through the Breach.
Okay. Well, he's not going for it at the moment. He's casting Faithless Looting.
Yeah, and we'll see what he ends up discarding here. The other thing to be concerned about is because of that Ravenous Trap, there is a decent chance that Jerome goes for it, resolves the Gristlebrand, starts going off, but uses Goryo's Vengeance to try to get back Borborygmos to finish things off, and Ritzy then plays Ravenous Trap and is able to win with Nexus on the following turn, despite Jerome drawing 21, 28 cards.
Jerome sitting at a nice 19 life.
Also, it looks like Jerome has both of his Borborygmos and Rages in the graveyard.
Yeah, I see that.
As someone pointed out, and that means he doesn't actually have a way to get them back because of that Ravenous Trap. Though, it looks like it might be a moot point here.
Jerome's passed the turn back.
Second main phase. You want to pass him
They're conferring with each other about exactly what point in the game we're at. This is Ritzy considering using that trap, it sounds like.
That would be the one thing he could do this turn that was of relevance. But a Faithless Looting was cast, 2 cards got discarded, so Ravenous Trap's alternate cost is on here.
Okay. Before the
Yeah, he's going to go for it.
And so what he's doing now is he's casting it at the end of Jerome's second main phase. And the reason is if Jerome does have a Goryo's Vengeance and gets back that that Borborygmos,
Yes.
then it won't stick around during Ritzy's turn, and because
Yes.
it could actually throw lands, at all places. So
Yeah, smart timing here for Mattia Ritzy and Team Italy.
Yeah.
And really putting it to Jerome Bastogne. And you can see Pascal Vier in there as well, consulting him.
yeah, Ritzy's got to be feeling it right now. This is a very close game. This is one of the more interesting games that we've seen because so much of what's going on is not on the board. There's a lot of interplay here, whereas both players, we saw multiple turns in a row. Both players had a presumed kill and didn't go for it. And that's the sort of play that you will see in the top 8. You'll see players not going for wins because of what their opponents could have. You see them trying to figure out what is going on. And
Oh, he's going for the Desperate Ritual off of the
all right, this is going to be exciting. So
right now.
So Belgium has determined that they can't win if this Ravenous Trap resolves. So in response to Ravenous Trap, they're throwing caution to the wind. They no longer have the luxury of playing around Spell Pierce. They're going to throw the Breach Gristlebrand into play.
And it's working. So here's Grizzlebrand.
The tough part is you don't get an attack. So
Right.
Jerome gets to draw 14 off this Gristlebrand. And what he's looking for now is he needs to find Simian Spirit Guide, Manamorphose, Goryo's Vengeance, and in order to get back Borborygmos, he actually needs the 2 remaining Simian Spirit Guides. He also needs to find Nourishing Shoal plus World Spine Worm to draw enough lands to finish off Ritzy, though he only needs 5 lands, so...
He just drew 14 cards, Luis, so we'll see if he can get there.
Yeah, he needs the last 2 Spirit Guides, one of the Manamorphoses, one of the Goryo's Vengeances, and 5 lands. That's what his win condition is here, and every World Spine Worm plus Nourishing Shoal he finds gives him another bite at the apple.
Okay, here's Nourishing Shoal, and there's the World Spine Worm. So explain to us what happens with that.
So
The end result is he's going to gain 11.
Yeah, Nourishing Shoal here. It's exiling a World Spine Worm to gain 11, and that gives you 7 more, another activation of Gristlebrand for 7. Also, if you stack multiples, sometimes you get 3 activations, right? You've exiled 2 World Spine Worms, gained 22, and then paid 21 life to draw 21 cards.
Wow, so he's chaining these together, trying to find enough life, cards, and eventually resources to get the job done.
All right, let's see.
See a pair of World Spine Worms pulled to the front by Jerome.
Let's see how close he's gotten. He needs a lot of different cards. Ravenous Trap's still in the stack, by the way.
It is. He's down to 2. Let's see if he can find what he needs. There's a Spirit Guide.
All right, so he's one of the 2 Spirit Guides. He needs both Spirit Guides. The order his cards come up is critical here. He's drawing so many cards, but he has to draw all the right ones. There's the Manamorphose.
Is he missing the second Spirit Guide?
I don't see
here,
a second
Luis?
Spirit Guide. Does he have a Nourishing Shoal? Let's look through. There's World Spine Worm.
I think he doesn't.
No, I don't think he's going to get there. I think he's drawn, 21 cards, and he's not quite there?
Yes, he's so close. He's won a Simian Spirit Guide. He's taking a look at his graveyard, but it may be on its way to exile from the Ravenous Trap, and he has missed. That means that the door is open for Metiarizzi. We're going to go to end step and then clean up here. We're going to get rid of Grizzlebrand. We're going to get rid of most of those cards in hand.
And this is where it was key for Italy that they chose to do this second main phase, if that's what they did, because that's what that sounded like. And that means that Grizzlebrand will not be in play during Italy's turn, cannot block the Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah, it does mean that Jerome gets to play a land, though. He's got that on his side.
And what that does mean, by the way, is that lone Simian Spirit Guide he has can cast that other sudden shock that he's found. He just shuffles them both to the front there.
Oh, that's
so he's going to get another turn too.
Oh man,
this game is something else.
This is really great, because we get really focused on him putting together a victory with that, but he also just drew 21. Like, he's got other cards in his deck,
right? And he's at 2 life, but he's playing against Infect. Being at 2 life, not a liability unless Rizzi finds a Noble Hierarch.
We're going to our end step and then clean up.
So
this is great.
And one of the other things is Jerome, no more Gristle, Borborygmos enraged, so he's going to have to win off Gristlebrand attacks.
2 of them.
2 of them in total, and he's got to discard down to 7, which actually costs him a fair amount of resources too.
Yeah.
Alternate win condition as well of Through the Breach and World Spine Worm there.
Yeah, just get in for 15.
And I've seen him in the game with that as well.
I have 2. Rizzi at a convenient 14 for that.
Also, a slight advantage of this turn is I think that Belgium successfully figured out that Rizzi does not have a Spell Pierce in hand.
Yes, they have determined that. It took a while. They didn't really have much to go on, but yeah, when the Through the Breach resolved, I think that was the conclusion as well.
And the reason the Gristlebrand didn't get exiled, by the way, is the Ravenous Trap resolved after Gristlebrand was in play, and then at the end of turn trigger, the Gristlebrand gets sacrificed. Then all these cards get discarded.
Rizzi's taking a quick look at all of the cards that Jerome's discarding.
Okay.
Take a look at the hand from Bastonia now. He's got a World Spine Worm, the Spirit Guide that we talked about, plus the 2 Sudden Shocks, the Goryo's Vengeance to set up.
Yeah, World Spine Worms
Through the Breach
are going to go into the library, by the way.
Yeah.
As you see them shuffle back in, because they are not easy to reanimate. That is part of the design.
Right. They have a replacement effect there. So
I want to see how Rizzi goes for this Infect kill, because depending on how he does it, he also might be susceptible to Sudden Shock. Like, there's no way for him to prevent Sudden Shock from killing Nexus, but if he uses Pendlehaven first, then he ends up he doesn't lose an additional pump spell. If he just goes animate Might of Old Crosta, then he ends up down a pump spell.
does he have another threat in hand? Let's take a look, because he is going to need another one.
He does. He has a Blighted Team Italy picked up a Blighted Agent, so if this doesn't work, then their backup plan of play Blighted Agent is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, except for there's another Sudden Shock in hand for Bastonia. Rizzi's just going to have to plow through both of these the hard way.
Meniguchi's telling him, or Portaro's telling him to tap it for mana first.
I think yes. Yeah, mana. Okay.
Yeah, that does not use the stack, of course, so that's why he's able to do that.
And that's one of the advantages of having teammates. All right, so there's the Blighted Agent, which means that next turn Italy can again go for lethal. And let's see how Jerome can string together this kill. He's got plans here.
He certainly does. After crafting that hand, ooh, he drew a World Spine Worm. He did not keep a land in hand, though, right?
He kept a swamp.
He did keep a swamp, so can he just put the
World
Spine Worm into play here?
He
Through
could
the breach it, attack you?
And then if Ritzy has a pump spell to try to survive, actually,
it's really important. Ritzy played that breeding pool untapped this last turn.
Yeah.
He went from 14 to 12 to do that.
What would be really funny is if Jerome didn't keep World Spine Worm, but then drew it and realized that was a better plan. Okay, so he did keep a World Spine Worm, so this was his plan all along.
Okay.
Now he has to decide, does he want a Goryo's Vengeance Gristlebrand, or does he want to just get the World Spine Worm in play? One of the advantages of using Goryo's Vengeance on Gristlebrand is you have Sudden Shock to make it sure you live another turn.
Yeah, that's the thing that I would be thinking here as well. You know, why get hasty with a Sudden Shock in hand? There's only one threat on the other side of the battlefield. You know you have an answer to it. Jerome's taking a look at his exile zone and his graveyard to figure out what it is that's left.
Yeah, this is going to be the more conservative line, because this way, if Team Italy dispels or has Spell Pierce, you don't just lose.
All right, here we go. Goryo's Vengeance for Jerome. Get back Grizzlebrand, leaving up red and black mana for his Sudden Shock for later. Grizzlebrand hits the red zone. That's going to put Jerome back up to 9. And interestingly, Ritzy down to 5. And it's going to let Jerome once again draw 7 cards off the top of his library.
How many cards can you draw and still lose? Is a really good question.
Though I do not want to see the answer to that.
Though I think Jerome is now in very good shape.
Can I?
Because he drew that backup World Spine Worm, he could even Nourishing Shoal here. And I think he could draw his whole deck at this point if he really wanted to.
He's got to be careful. You don't want to go too deep down that well.
No.
All right, he's going to gain a bunch of life here with Nourishing Shoal and World Spine Worm. Back up to 13. He's drawn 28 cards off of Grizzlebrand this game.
That is the current count.
Wow. Looks like he's got maybe just a shade over the requisite 7 there. 9 cards left in his library.
The question is, and this is what both teams are asking themselves, what is even left in Jerome's deck? Is how many cards that are relevant? And the answer is enough that he's going to draw some more ones.
Here we go. He's going to draw 7 more cards, leaving himself with just 2, but he knows what's left. Through process of elimination, looking at his exile zone and his graveyard plus his hand, he'll know what those cards are and what he's looking for exactly. Looks like he's got an Engineered Explosives pulled to the front here, Luis.
One of his sideboard cards. And if he's going to cast Sudden Shock, playing an Engineered Explosive for 1, kind of free. You're not going to use the mana for anything else. You have to discard 1 fewer card.
Ritzy, of course, is going to be keenly aware of the possibility for that Sudden Shock, but there's really not much he can do about it.
And given that both teams know 3 Sudden Shocks got sided in, the odds that Jerome has one in hand are enormous right now. He's only got 2 cards left in his deck.
Right.
And he's about to have more, but they're all going to be World Spine Worms.
Ritzy's asking a question of his teammate, but this one's not looking good for Team Italy. What a sweet game this was. But Jerome Bastogne from Team Belgium has drawn so many extra cards, really leaning on these Sudden Shocks to keep him alive. And it looks like he's found a way to get a win here.
World Spine Worm is going to be one of those 3 cards. Let's figure out where it is.
Cut my deck. Even Ritzy has to smile there. He's going to draw Glistener Elf off the top of his library. Not what he wanted to see. Ritzy, of course, has to test the waters here, and there it is. Sudden shock to kill the Blighted Agent. And the Engineered Explosives threatening to kill Glistener Elf as well.
Yeah, even if Jerome didn't successfully kill
Nourishing
here,
shoal.
the Engineered Explosives gives him a lot of redundancy.
Right, but here we go. Here's the play that should end the game here. He's going to play Goryo's Vengeance, targeting Grizzlebrand, plenty enough for lethal, and get in there,
Wow.
and that does it. Jerome Bastonia wins an incredibly hard-fought game. I got to tell you, Luis, that just evened things up against Mattia Ritzy, by the way. That only forced a game 3. Jerome's going to have to take a deep breath and start shuffling up for the sideboarded game here as we move to game 3. Just as a snapshot for what we've got, by the way, 1 game apiece for each of the Italian players. Jerome Bastonia, Peter Vieira, each have also won a game on their side, with Branko Niernik, the only one who has not picked up a win on our feature match area. Let's go back to our table C. Alessandro Casamenti with Ad Nauseam playing against Peter Vieira from Belgium with Infect.
Go ahead and nominate that last game for best game of the tournament, even though the tournament's not done yet.
Yes, that one. It's certainly number 1 for me at the moment. That was incredible stuff from our players, and they certainly made it exciting.
Andrea nicknamed Mengu, of course, and
Yeah.
he's getting summoned for hand consulting.
Team Scarf over there, by the way.
You know,
Those two brought their scarves together.
Oh, I'm definitely into it. Scarves are awesome.
I forgot mine at home for this trip. I was really bummed. You know, win in Europe.
So the worst thing you can hear your teammate say, by the way, hey, should I keep this hand? I'm already on 5. Those are the worst.
Keep this hand, I'm already on 5.
Hey, would you keep this? I'm already on 5. No, we're not there yet, but those are words you dread hearing.
Oh, you don't want to hear that. Okay, we are underway. This is, in fact, a game 3, so the winner of this game is going to decide our first match win for this round. And it's going to feature Peter Viren on the play with Infect, right where he wants to be. Really, really tough for Alessandro, right? On the draw especially, just so much time for Peter.
For Alessandro to win, he's I think generally going to need at least 1 copy of Darkness in order to buy himself a turn. He actually has he's got a Slaughter Pact in his hand, so that could also do it. That could actually buy multiple turns, but Alessandro can't win before Peter does if Peter has anything resembling a normal draw, especially when Peter is going first. So Alessandro's going to need some of his disruption, and that always puts combo decks in a rough spot.
It does, and you see that here. He just found a Darkness, but where's his combo?
So he needs that card in order to not die, but he's now missing an Ad Nauseam. So you end up in the kind of spot where you need to draw basically a 3-card combo instead of a 2-card combo. You need to draw Ad Nauseam, Angel's Grace to win the game, but you also need to draw Darkness or Slaughter Pact in order to not lose the game, and adding an additional piece to it makes it much more difficult.
Yeah, a couple of Spirit Guides help speed things up, though we will note that in the other 2 games, he had the Lotus Bloom. He doesn't have it this time.
He doesn't. The 2 Simian Spirit Guides do provide some redundancy, though.
Mm-hmm.
Simian Spirit Guide, is that one of the keys to doing well this tournament? Both teams have a deck with 4 Simian Spirit Guides.
Card does not generally get played in what we would call fair decks. Both of these teams opting for pretty linear decks, really. Goryo's Vengeance, Infect, Lantern, Naya Burn, Infect, Ad Nauseam. Not a lot of mid-range in that list.
No, none of these teams are about the Jund life at all.
No.
The Belgian team is about the lunch break. They're aiming to finish all their rounds in 20 minutes, which, jokes aside, being very aggressive has advantages. You get to help your teammates more because your matches finish more quickly, helps with tournament fatigue, and they just think these decks are good choices for the metagame.
Okay, Glistener Elf with a Noble Hierarch and a Pendelhaven out for Peter Viren.
So, of note,
good start.
Peter Viren is missing actual pump spells, but he's got a Dispel, and Dispel is a really effective card against the combo. Actually, he's got a second Dispel. This is part of why this matchup is so hard, is Peter Viren has Casamenti beat on speed, and with those 2 copies of Dispel, it's going to be extremely difficult for Casamenti to even go off successfully.
Peter's planning out his next turn or two, starting with this land drop, but he's already going to be applying pressure.
And he's not going to need...
Alessandro, he can get in for 3 right here.
Yeah, he's not going to need pump spells. This Pendelhaven plus this Noble Herrick put Casamenti on a fast enough clock that it's just... It's good enough to have Dispel backup.
And in fact, close to lethal here, 1 pump spell away, with Alessandro already at 6 poison, having done virtually nothing.
So Casamenti now in a position where he's going to have to start using his darknesses and slaughter packs way earlier than he wanted to. He wanted to start using these on turn 4 to try to go off on turn 5 or 6. If he has to start using these on turn 3, especially slaughter packed, if he's not able to go off the turn following slaughter pact, he has to either pay for it or burn an Angel's Grace. In his optimal scenario, he slaughter packs on Peter's turn and then untaps and casts Angel's Grace in response to the trigger, therefore not losing the game to the pack trigger, then goes land, double Simian Spirit Guide into
Ad nauseam.
Ad nauseam, but he's short a critical piece. It looks like he's short the ad nauseam right now.
And he actually is facing lethal here, right, Luis?
Yes, with Inkmoth Nexus, Pendelhaven, and now, of course, a mutagenic growth in hand.
Oh, even then, yeah. But even on board, it was 1, 2, 3 plus the Inkmoth Nexus.
Well, mutagenic growth makes this just very easy.
Because of the double dispel.
Now, Peter Viren has double dispel.
He just cannot lose.
Is going to try to use a darkness here to buy an additional turn. It's just not going to work.
Right, that is not going to be the answer. Peter Viren has double backup. He says, I'm going to show you a dispel, and I am presenting lethal poison, looking to take the first match for the Belgians.
Casamenti is going to decide what to slaughter pact.
And it's not going to matter
anyway.
And
he's just going to get dispelled.
Interestingly, it looks like Pascal's suggesting that Peter lets that happen and just go ahead and uses mutagenic growth. And yes, that does in fact earn the handshake. And you'll see the Viren brothers now argue and discuss which one was better. But a little shrug there from Pascal. Either way, it was going to be good enough. And the team captain for Belgium comes through for his team, giving them the first match win and putting them just 1 match win away from the finals. Let's go back to Jerome Bastogne, the Gorio's Vengeance player, versus Mattia Rizzi on Infect. That game, yeah. Drawing 28. I'm not going to lie. I was a little jealous. Yeah, that's his face I would have if I just drew that many cards. Mattia Rizzi, a good sport here as well.
Yeah. You're still looking for life.
So, just as by way of updates here as well, we know that the first match went to Belgium. The other 2 tables, though, are both going to game 3s now. Bronco Neerink just defeated Alessandro Potaro with that Lantern deck, defeated the Lantern deck and evened things up. We're going to be holding them, I'm pretty confident, and depending on how this one goes. Now, if we are going to see Naya Burn versus Lantern Control to decide things, it's going to have to be Mattia Rizzi beating Jerome with this Infect deck. Or else the Belgians are through to the finals.
The only silver lining here is that I think Italy had kind of written off the ad nauseum matchup in this particular round because it's facing Infect, which is such a tough matchup. So Italy's paths to victory largely did not involve Casamenti winning. If he won, it was incredible for them. That would have given them a huge edge. But they're about where they expected to be, which is having to win their other 2 matches.
Right.
And expectations are important. So they did steal a game with ad nauseum, and they're going to have to be content with that.
Take a look at Jerome here. Kind of interesting, if you heard the interview earlier, when you see the players talking here, that's Pascal behind him. They'll actually be speaking in English mostly, as Belgium has multiple languages that are spoken. Jerome speaking mainly French.
Can you not look
The rest of his team mostly Dutch.
Like when you shuffle at the end, you always look.
Okay.
But
Okay.
so I prefer.
So we'll see how this one goes, though. Ricci's got to be happy to be on the play with Infect. It's just such an advantageous position to be in.
When you have very fast decks matching up, the order, it becomes more and more important being on the play. The Jund Abzan mirror, not so much important to be on the play.
Mengucci can hardly look. He tried to look away, and it looks like he found his way back. And he's out of here.
It's wheeling away.
Hell, for fans of Team Italy, hopefully that was because he saw, at least in his mind, the tools to get the job done, and it wasn't him giving up. He was going over to sit behind Alessandro Portaro. We're going to hold their match, but maybe help him with his mulligan decision. Finds a Vastwood sitting on top of the library for Rizzi. Looks like both players on 6 here.
Yeah. Rizzi has an Infect creature in hand, but it is an Inkmoth Nexus. So Vines of Astra is the worst pump spell to combine with Nexus just because the mana costs are so high on both those cards. So not surprised he chose to put it on the bottom.
Okay. Just some lands for each players, but they're not all equal. Did you just draw another one off the top anyway, Luis? It looks like
it looks like it.
Yeah.
To go with the one already in hand.
It was not going to be denied. I mean, still a great card. Like you said, it's just, he'd prefer to see more Might of Old Croesus to try to line up a really quick kill. He does have a Might of Old Croesus in his hand as we speak, though.
Let's take a look at what Bastion is working with.
Whoa.
A lot of expensive cards.
He needs to get these cards out of his hand, doesn't he?
Well, on the plus side, he's got Sudden Shock, so he can kill this Inkmoth Nexus, and he's got Anger of the Gods, so if Rizzi draws a creature that is not a Nexus, Anger of the Gods at least has a chance of taking it down.
Well, I think Rizzi's going to test the waters here. He's trying to become immense as well.
5 cards, 6 cards. How many cards? 6.
So what is Bastion looking to do? I guess with this particular hand, Through the Breach is going to be his fastest path to victory since he already has Crystal Brand in hand. The problem is he's missing multiple mana sources in order to get there.
Raga, in realtà se facciamo all'altro modo e lui non ce l'ha, abbiamo vinto il turno dopo. In questo modo abbiamo vinto forse tutto.
Okay, he's going to tap the Pendelhaven, activate, attack with Inkmoth, and we should see it shot down right out of the sky here.
Very good chance Jerome goes for a Sudden Shock here. If he doesn't, it's only because he wants to tempt out a pump spell later. But that Pendelhaven, as we saw last game, does a very effective job of forcing Jerome to use Sudden Shock before Rizzi commits anything other than the Nexus.
Yeah, right now it's only for 2, but it's going to head up quickly. All right. Ability on the stack. Take care of this thing. All right, so threat down, and he's left Rizzi with no Infect creatures and none in hand.
That's a World Spine Worm. That is about the opposite of what
look how
Jerome is looking for.
Look at his hand. 11, 8, 8.
The converted mana cost of Jerome's hand is increasing rapidly.
It really is.
So Jerome's best draws here are Faithless Looting or Night's Whisper because he needs to draw multiple mana sources or draw Goryo's Vengeance plus a discard outlet. So those are the cards that he would need to get his game going at a fast pace.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to have very many more turns if Rizzi can find a way to deal damage here.
Yeah, he's got 37 mana worth of spells in his hand.
The upside,
In Modern.
the upside for Jerome though is without an Infect creature, if Rizzi goes for the actual damage kill, which she's not that far away from. Noble Hierarch can actually end games, and plenty of games this tournament. World Spine Worm plus Nourishing Shoal does let you stay alive, which is not normally the plan against Infect.
It really is.
The Italians now, basically, what I believe they're talking about now is that they should start using pump spells in this Noble Hierarch because they have a ton of pump spells and they have a lot of mana that will just be unused if they don't.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what's happening. Vines of Vastwood plus the Exalted trigger And they're going to start chipping away here. Jerome's down to 15.
Though, actually, despite Jerome's hand being, very high on the awkwardness scale, if Riti doesn't find an Infector in the next turn or two, a Glistener Elf, a Blighted Agent, or an Inkmoth Nexus, I think Jerome is going to have the time to draw out of his current predicament, because lands or Faithless Looting or Night's Whispers or Desperate Rituals or Simian Spirit Guides are all good draws. And
that is a large chunk of his library.
And Nourishing Shoal plus Worldspine Worm is going to make this Noble Hierarch damage plan really not one that's going to work.
Yeah, the worst part about it from Riti's perspective is that Jerome can just wait until he just emptied out all those pump spells out of his hand and then just blank all of them at once.
We could end up in a spot where Riti goes for the damage kill by using these pump spells. It fails against Worldspine Worm, Nourishing Shoal, and then Riti draws an Infect creature but actually just can't finish off Jerome in time.
Right. Well, this is going to change things. He found a Gitaxian Probe, Luis, which is going to allow him to see that that plan is not going to bear fruit.
And now that you see this Nourishing Shoal plus Worldspine Worm, you've got to be a lot less excited.
Yeah, how about we draw a card here as well, Riti, but you may want to write down what's going on. That is what teammates are for. So the writing's on the wall as far as the regular damage plan goes. That's going to be an extreme uphill battle for the Italians. So they really need to find themselves an Infect creature, and they just cannot draw anything but Vines of Vastwood, it seems.
Possible that Italy gets to the point they have 18 damage in their hand of pump spells.
Worth of pump spells?
Where they start using pump spells even knowing that there's that Worldspine Worm plus Shoal.
Gosh, that seems so rough.
It's not the spot you want to be in. This has been a very strange match.
It's exactly what they're doing, Luis. Get in there. Wow. All right. They're going to force the issue. Down to 7 for Jerome.
Really 18, though, because remember that Nourishing Shoal is still lurking in Jerome's hand. That can gain 11 at any point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this match has really been one for the ages. Super weird lines, super cool stuff happening.
Jerome might be at a spot where he uses Anger of the Gods to try to kill that Noble Hierarch. This is the spot we're in. They're clearly on the damage plan. They cast Becommons. They know you have Nourishing Shoal, yet they're still willing to do this. That also could signify, Belgium could think that Italy has Dispel in hand, because that would counter Nourishing Shoal, and that would make a lot of sense why they would go for damage plan despite knowing about Nourishing Shoal.
Here we go. Anger of the Gods is going to earn one of the pump spells out of the hand from the Italians. Vines of Vastwood is going to...
So now the Italians are tapped out. Yeah, this is the perfect time to cast Nourishing Shoal. You really don't want to get dispelled next turn.
Okay, yeah. And Jerome all over it, wasting no time to making sure that he books that. The Italians knew about it. There was nothing else to be gained by waiting, so he went for it, putting himself back up to 19 and making that hill just a little bit taller for the Italians.
Riti could attack for 9 here if he really wanted to, but it does not seem like something he's interested in.
Yeah, he's just going to get in for 1.
And Jerome's still 2 lands away from casting Through the Breach, so there aren't very many bricks in his deck, but he might be able to draw some.
Found another land.
All right.
That does not count as a brick.
So now Jerome's in a spot where any mana source, land, Simian Spirit Guide, Desperate Ritual, lets him cast Through the Breach Gristlebrand and presumably be very close to winning.
Yeah, it was a Black Cleave Cliffs, which is tapped. It won't matter here, but...
It does mean if he draws an additional next turn. Or a Temple of Malice.
He plays temples, yeah, exactly. Okay.
So Riti's best draw is still probably just Dispel. Though Spell Pierce not too far behind against a hard cast Through the Breach, without a bunch of mana floating. So Riti has good draws as well. If Riti draws an Infect creature and Jerome draws a land for Through the Breach, Jerome still likely wins. So Riti, I think, wants to, if he could order his library, he would order something like Dispel into Blighted Agent or Glistener Elf.
Okay.
potentially even Inkmoth Nexus if he's worried about another anger. But either way, Dispel, I think, would be the card that would protect him the most, give him the most draw steps.
See what he finds. Yeah, he found an Apostle's Blessing.
That wouldn't have been bad earlier. Would have traded for Anger of the Gods, but yeah, now is not the time when Apostle's Blessing is interesting.
Yeah, this is just getting rougher and rougher. And, you know, again, just to give you a big picture perspective on the round here, Peter Vieren from Belgium has already won his match. That means that if Jerome Bastogne wins this one, they're through. We're done. We're on to the finals. Rizzi is fighting to keep Team Italy's hopes alive and force a final and deciding match between Alessandro Portaro and Branco. So if we can get to that point, that would have it all on the line. But right now, Belgium's fate lies in Jerome Bastogne's hands. If he can get the job done, they're through.
I don't think Rizzi's counting his blessings here. He drew another one, and that's not what he wanted to draw.
Yes, he's got two of them in his hands. And he's going to go for the main phase, Might of Old Crosa, and he's just piling on as much damage as he can with the vines. It's desperation time for Team Italy. They're doing the best they can with this plan. This, of course, makes all future Infect Creature draws much, much worse.
So a reason that they would do that this turn is it limits how many cards Jerome can draw from Griselbrand.
Jerome bricked? Well, I guess he didn't need anything here. He did find another copy of Through the Breach, but...
Yeah, he's going to get to Through the Breach, though, this turn.
Yeah.
And...
So what do you anticipate him doing here?
Well,
Griselbrand start chaining things?
He can Through the Breach Griselbrand. He's actually in kind of interesting spot where he's not likely to die next turn. He's not facing down an Infect Creature.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to force the combo here when you're many cards away from it, unless the first 7 he draws is somehow like almost the entire combo right there, like, you know, some combination of a land, Simian Spirit Guide, multiple, like a Desperate Ritual for another Through the Breach, or a Faithless Looting plus a Goryo's Vengeance. Unless he draws all those things, if he stays at 8, he's probably not dying to the Noble Hierarch. And if he could just attack with Griselbrand, actually, this isn't an option.
Just gain 7?
Just attack, drain your opponent for 7, put Mattia down to 6 and Jerome back up to 15. And then if he does that, next turn he can Through the Breach Borborygmos. But that is, or cast a Goryo's Vengeance on Griselbrand.
Griselbrand back. That's a 2-turn clock as well.
If you don't think you're winning this turn, this is the safest, because if Jerome attacks and then draws 7, he stays at 8 life. There are combinations that can deal 8 damage. I mean, that's very easy to imagine. Jerome doesn't know either of the cards in Rizzi's hand right now. So, and Rizzi's been pretty aggressive with these pump spells. So I would not be surprised if Jerome just settles for Through the Breach, Griselbrand attack, you go. Followed by draw 7. Drawing 14 seems like the least likely of the scenarios, because unless your first 7,
you're all in.
Yeah, unless your first 7 are very, very close to perfect, drawing the second 7 seems like it's introducing an unnecessary element of risk in a game that you don't appear to be that close to losing immediately.
Okay, back up to 15 for Jerome. So a lot about the fate of the Belgian team is going to be, A, if he draws cards, and B, what are those cards he draws with that first 7? Because he may just find exactly what he needs to chain it together and make it work. No, he's going to stay at 15. Like you said, he's going to drain his opponent's life for 7, putting him dead next turn to the Goryo's Vengeance that he has in his hand, and Rizzi has one draw step to find some way to interact. He found a Blighted Agent. That is not going to get the job done here for Team Italy.
That would have sealed the deal if it was drawn 3 turns earlier, but at this point, Team Belgium is just going to go for it, and
yes,
they're going to be successful.
That's right. Team Belgium already up a match in this game. All Jerome Bastogne has to do is use his Goryo's Vengeance on Griselbrand, which is exactly what's happened. Mattia Rizzi has no responses, and Griselbrand is lethal in the air. A little pump fake there from Rizzi. And he's going to give Griselbrand protection and then earn the handshake. And we have our second finalist. Belgium works their way through, and they have advanced to meet Greece in the finals, Luis. Fantastic stuff between these two teams.
Oh, that Goryo's Vengeance Infect match is one for the ages.
All right, finally some smiles, too. They've been pretty serious down in the feature match area. They're playing decks that are difficult to play and also not that forgiving, so you'll see them really concentrate when they're playing, but now they know, all right, we are one step away from being World Magic Cup champions. Welcome back to the booth. Marshall Sutcliffe with Luis Scott Vargas, and that was really intense stuff.
Oh, man, that was incredible.
It is getting ratcheted up in a big way, and I have to say, very impressed by the Goryo's Vengeance deck getting by the deck, the Infect deck from the Italians. Just kind of went over the top, though, in a very specific
circuitous manner.
Yeah, keep on drawing more and more cards and kind of buried them eventually. A tough draw there, it must be said, for Rizzi at the end, needing to resort to regular damage with that Noble Hierarch, even in the face of an opponent who's going to gain 11 life at some point as well. All right, guys. That's going to do it for the semifinals, which means, of course, that we're going to be set up for the finals. We'll be back after these messages.
Welcome back to the news desk. We are down to the final two. It is Greece and Belgium who are here, coming your way in just a few minutes' time. The final of the World Magic Cup is nearly upon us. Rich Hagen alongside Pro Tour historian Brian David Marshall, Pro Tour champion from 2010, Mr. Simon Gertzen, part of our global coverage family. Great to have you with us, Simon, here on the eve of the final, just minutes away. So, in the next few minutes, we'll walk you through what's coming your way in the final. We'll look at the matchups that could decide the destination of the trophy. We'll walk you through what happened this weekend as 73 countries came to game. But why don't we begin with our afternoon here in Rotterdam and our semi-finals. Let's take a look at our top 8 bracket for you. And a highlight from the morning as we saw Australia against Italy. Italy advanced. Greece, Ukraine. Greece advanced. Finland, Belarus. It was Belarus. And Belgium, Panama. It was Belgium. But it's easy to say that all very quickly, but there was a ton of great magic to get those 4 results. BDM, a highlight from the morning package of QFs.
Obviously, Finland going home from the quarterfinals, disappointed, but they have a pretty memorable game to take with them. Leo Lahonen of the Finnish team had a thing in the ice, had a handful of cheap spells that let him, do all sorts of things, whether it's bolts or dig through his library.
This sounds great.
Yeah, it seems awesome. but his opponent had a Chalice of the Void for 1, shutting off a huge swath of his deck. But you know what? He just said, okay, cast all his Phyrexian mana spells, his 1-drops, cast 4 spells in 1 turn. They got countered, but they still triggered Thing in the Ice. He had an Awoken Horror. He had, the ability to just Team or Battle Rage it, and he got in for the win. Kind of incredible to just throw 4 spells in the garbage, but use them to win the game.
Yeah, and Simon, Magic is full of spells that don't just do what they read on the card, but do some very specific niche things in very unusual circumstances. And really good players recognize the moment when discarding 4 spells that do nothing is a way to win a game.
Because the trigger they cause is more valuable than their original effect, basically.
Yeah, which it almost never happens, and you saw it here at the home of Magic. We were glad to bring you that in the quarterfinals. But then we got into our semi-final action this afternoon, and we began there in the bottom half of the bracket with Greece against Belarus. BDM, what happened with that one?
You know what? Greece very convincingly made their way into the finals. They've gotten as far now as they did in 2014. And, as we heard from Bill Konopoulos earlier today, he's here with one goal in mind, and that's to do one match better, one game better than they did in 2014 when they lost to the Dune Blast from the Danish team that just was the exact right card. A card Simon Nielsen said, I didn't even remember it was in our deck. I hadn't seen it all tournament until that moment. Just a heartbreaker for Greece, and hoping to do one match better today.
That was the blast from the past, if you like, in 2014. But you should remember, how's this for poetry and justice? Bill Chronopoulos, he's the player with Dredge. He's got Dark Blast in his 75. So we could yet see the blast coming back on the right side of the Greece. And that would be an incredibly, with a capital R, romantic end to the World Magic Cup. But we need an opponent. And we have just seen, Simon, a really nuts semi-final. Now, if you read Andrea Mengucci on Facebook, you knew coming into this that Italy thought they were ready to pack their bags and head for the airport. They didn't see a way to win with their 3 matchups. But all of a sudden, with 4 games played, Simon, Italy were 3 games to 1 up, and then we settled in to what Luis called a game for the ages. Jerome Bastogne with Gurio's Vengeance against Mattia Rizzi. Infect. Startling stuff.
Yes, both of these teams showed why they were in the semifinals. I think Jerome Bastoni has impressed all of us with his ability to maneuver around cards, predict what his opponents are going to do, and just knowing the ins and outs of this really complicated combo deck that has to manage life total, cards in hand, mana, and the graveyard, and somehow find avenues to victory that even we just didn't see coming.
We talk about Magic a lot, and sort of we talk about how you'll see some matches of Modern that could be pretty much, well, I drew my combo and I roll over you, and there was nothing you could do about it. But this was a game where it was the second game was almost determined by the cards that were not in hand, but the mana that represented that they might be. And we saw Mattia Rizzi just very deliberately leave up Spell Pierce or Dispel mana for multiple turns, and had to have just earn total respect for it from the Belgian side of the table, and it was amazing to watch.
But that's exactly what you get when you have high-level thinking, high-level players playing high-level Magic, right? It's exactly why we're watching. Not only what is being cast, but also what's being represented, what could be, and what ultimately happens.
Fantastic. So let's look at our bracket one more time. We have, just to confirm, 2 finalists ready to go. Greece are through from semi-final 1, and they are joined by Belgium. In just a few short minutes, we'll see those 2 go at it, and we'll mark your card by walking you through the matchups in just a few minutes. But first, my colleague here, Brian David Marshall, was out and about throughout this week, and Magic, yes, it's all about the cards one after the other, but away from the game, the players have a life too, and you had a chance to just take a little offbeat look at some of the big names that were here at the World Magic Cup. Check this out and we'll see you in just a few minutes.
I'm a publisher of a magazine, a jiu-jitsu magazine that I also train at home pretty avidly and play Magic as well.
So when I don't do Magic, I try to keep up with school, where I'm currently studying linguistics, which is like just studying a bunch of different languages. So it's not like that we delve into one specific language and learn that. It's more like knowing a bunch of random facts about a lot of languages.
I actually not only play Magic, not only be a professional Magic player. I also study. I'm studying law. I'm the 5th year. Usually in Italy, 5 years are enough to get the graduation. But last year was a little bit rough for me. I chase the pro life, so I'm slowing a little bit. Try to finish my degree this year or next year. But meanwhile, try also to be the best Magic player possible, which is a very difficult thing. So trying to merge these two things, it's a little difficult, but doing my best.
I love watching esports. I don't know, every game.
I have a job as a mobile app developer, and it takes a lot of time programming, and then I try to do some sports. When I'm not playing Magic, so I play a lot of basketball, and I used to play American football. Yeah, I know I don't look like it, but
I work in a Magic shop in Rome. The name is Galactus. It's one of the biggest shops in Italy. It's good to work in a Magic shop because if you can't play a lot, you stay in the same words you know, no? So you can interact with the player, you can see what they love to play, and it's fun to play, to work in a Magic shop.
I spend more time with my girlfriend, with my beautiful cat, and I look football. My favorite team is Milan, and I'm very happy when Milan wins, and nothing else.
Maybe I'm a math teacher, so I had to change all my courses for this week to be able to play test, and I hope my students won't care too much.
My family have a restaurant in Italy, so I like to cook a lot. My dad is a chef. He like to make the pizza. I like to make the pizza and the pasta. Like to cook everything.
Okay, so when I started to play Magic into Pro Tour, I was a student in biology, so it's something I really like, and I'm still reading some article online about science article, about space or medicine, all of this subject. I like it. Yeah.
So I got contacted by Make-A-Wish because there was an 11-year-old boy called Marius that wanted to meet me as his wish for that. That was completely, also I think that was completely unexpected, and I got kind of really happy and proud about that, but also it's kind of sad in a way. But that was a really special moment that I didn't expect to get from Magic at all.
There are so many special moments in the game, and it's always the unexpected ones that mean the most. They creep up on you and they leave you just being very thankful that you're part of the game and that the game is part of your life. That's certainly my experience, and I know for both of you, the game's given us all so much. Hopefully, the game is about to give us a tremendous World Magic Cup final. So let's get to it. It is Belgium against Greece. Let's take a look at the two teams for you. They are settling in the feature match area for us right now. Here they come. We begin with Belgium. The squad with no weak links at all. They have dominated this tournament. They've really barely looked like losing through the weekend. Branko Nering, Jerome Baston, and the Viren brothers. Pascal, a former national champion. Peter Viren, the reigning captain for Belgium. In their way, once again, for the second time in 3 years, and whether they win or lose, what an amazing achievement that is. Here are Greece. Team Greece, led by Bill Chronopoulos. There you see them. Nicholas Kaponis, he's going to be the coach, sitting between all the matches that matter in this final. Panagiotis Papadopoulos and Petros Siotis. it will be either Greece or Belgium who win this final. Simon Gertzon, let's get to it. We have 3 matches to determine the trophy, and let's look at the crucial matchups coming up. So, in Seat A, Jerome Bastoni, who has, I think, been the star of this tournament. We've seen him so often on camera with barely a misstep. Gorio's Vengeance is his deck. He is up against Bill Chronopoulos, the captain, with Dredge. How do you see this one going?
I think that the pure combo deck, Gorio's Vengeance, is favored here. It's simply difficult to interact for Dredge, so I think Jerome will take this down.
All right, so in the middle seat then, we have Branko Naring with Naya Byrne against Petros Tsiodis with Abzan.
A much closer matchup. Abzan certainly has the tools to stem the bleeding, but in game 1, I'm afraid that the Byrne deck has the advantage.
BDM, we've seen one of the facets of the Belgian play is that we've gone off-air through the weekend as we've handed across to the feature match area. And round about, 5 to 8 minutes later, Belgium are 3-0 up in the match.
We're scrambling to get back to the desk.
Right. Just how important is that set? I mean, I hesitate to use the word momentum because I'm not sure that that is precisely apt, but there has to be a genuine psychological feeling of being under the gun when, after 5-10 minutes, you are all the way along the row. You're 0-1 down.
Well, how about just a freshness, too, of again, all 3 of the decks that they're playing are very well and able to have their game done by turn 4. And to go through, and that's true of a lot of decks in Modern, but we don't see a Lantern deck on their team. Even if you're done early, everyone still has to focus all their energy on the other match. And so, if you don't have anyone doing that, these guys are just fresh every round. They're not spending as much time, under that pressure cooker. So I don't know about momentum, but I think freshness does have something to do with it. Until the top 8, they only faced elimination 1 time.
Now, Seat C, this is an interesting one. It's Infect for Peter Viren against Infect for Panagiotis Papadopoulos. So, Simon, in general terms, I'm not going to ask you which is favoured, but I am going to ask you, because it may well come down to this, give us a sense of the signposts as viewers we should be looking for to get a sense of how can you tell who has an edge in an Infect mirror?
Mm-hmm. So that's always going to be a race that comes down to who gets to deal 10 poison damage first. And usually the person that's on the play and that has the better mana development will be favored. However, there are some tricky things that you have to watch out for. Spell Skites and Twisted Images play a huge role, and Vines of Vastwood can actually counter your opponent's pump spells. So it's a really tricky matchup if it goes into this mid-game brawl.
Well, how important is Bladed Agent because all the pump spells in the world, if my Glistener Elf blocks your Glistener Elf, all the pump spells in the world can't save either one of them, right?
Yes, so I would say Bladed Agent is your best Infect creature. Inkmoth Nexus is still very, very good, and Glistener Elf, not so much.
Well, why don't we take a look at those 2 Infect decks, see if we can tease out an edge to one or either side. Here's Peter Viren's version of Infect. So you've got the 4 Blighted Agent, 4 Glistener Elf, 4 Hierarch, and a single Viridian Corruptor. Then there's your Pump, your Become Immense, your Blossoming Defense, Distortion Strikes, Might of Old Crows, and Mutagenic Growth. There's a Twisted Image in there, Vines of Vastwood, of course, just all the pump spells in the world. It may come down, Simon, to sideboard. What do you think of the sideboard there in the Effect side?
Only 1 Spellskite and a second Twisted Image, 1 in the main, 1 in the sideboard. That's not too much, but it's something to work with. Dismember and Dispels and Spell Pierces actually give you even more ways to interact with your opponent. I'm not sure how many of these Peter will bring in, because you cannot just change your strategy too drastically, but I could see especially the Dispel be a crucial part of a more interactive game plan.
All right, let's head across town to the Greek Infect deck. This is Panagiotis Papadopoulos, and what do we see in terms of differences there? Of course, so many cards going to be exactly the same. You've got a second Twisted Image there, but all the usual stuff. The sideboard, Simon, again.
Yes, a little bit more interaction, I would say. 2 Spell Skites is a big difference, and there are already 2 Twisted Images in the main. Dismember in the main deck, 2 Dismembers in the sideboard. From the list alone, I would say the Greek list is a bit better for the mirror.
Now, BDM, all weekend we've been saying that Belgium have been ahead of the curve, and Simon's just said that who goes first could be really important. Who is on the play in the World Magic Cup final?
Well, it's going to be top seed Belgium.
Okay, could that be one of the deciding factors? 3-on-3 with a coach waiting in the wings to help out wherever it's needed. We're down to the final two. Thanks for being with us. Strap yourselves in because it is time for the World Magic Cup Final 2016.
Hello there and welcome back to the booth here at the World Magic Cup. Marshall Sutcliffe with Luis Scott Vargas. And we've had a really exciting day so far, it must be said, but it's not over yet. We still have to decide who our champion is. We've got Belgium versus Greece for the World Magic Cup right now.